Now let's have a look at the intolerant, inclusive, sharing and caring left, shall we, and see how they reacted to the defeat of the coalition Perrottet government in New South Wales. I mean, Tanya Plibersek even said it was a win for civility and respect in politics. Really? Jubilant at a Labor victory, many on the left paraded their hypocrisy, of course, and their hatred. In the Sydney Morning Herald, millionaire leftist Peter Fitzsimons mentioned Donald Trump and Boris Johnson as he ranted about the far right and referred to Dominic Perrottet. Really? What universe is Fitzy operating in? Labor's policies under Chris Minns in New South Wales were further to the right than Perrottet's. And what about the bloke who inherited a resources fortune from his father, the Teals money man, Simon Holmes a court? He tweeted about the Liberals running climate deniers, anti-vaxxers, misogynists, racists, homophobes and transphobes, referring to the Liberals as a party of society's worst prejudices. Wow. Feel the love, hey? Feel the tolerance. This is the respectful politics of the Teals, and feel Holmes a court's grip on reality. Talk about prejudices. Do as Simon says, hey, not as he does. And what about former Labor staffer and ABC lifer Barry Cassidy? He tweeted that with the coalition out of power across the mainland, it might be time to accept that people do actually care about climate change, and they will never flirt with right-wing religious zealots and their awful discriminatory prejudices. Barry apparently hasn't caught up with the net zero mantra spouted by Liberals coast to coast. And what about this nonsense on religious zealotry and discriminatory prejudices? What about that for hatred and bile from Cassidy? It might be time for Barry to turn up at confession. There was more anti-Catholic spite from ABC presenter Philip Adams too, who tweeted that Perrottet gets a whipping in the Opus Dei tradition. Unlike Cassidy, at least Adams can do spite with a bit of wit. One of the things we all love about the left, of course, is the way they rail against all forms of discrimination and intolerance, except for the bile and hatred they spew at conservatives, and especially Christians. Remember when Perrottet spoke about the night his wife Helen fell seriously ill?
I spoke to Helen, who was in immense pain, paralysed in bed, and in tears.
Whatever your political allegiances, that was a horrible situation. But check out Rhonda Garrett, a Greens councillor in Victoria and a senior lecturer, by the way, at Monash University. She took to Twitter and asked, "And still, can no one tell me why Mrs. Perrottet was paralysed and now can walk? Was that an Opus Dei miracle?" Absolutely despicable, but very much on brand for the Greens, don't you think? This leftist rancour towards Conservatives spreads further, of course. Have a look at former Channel 10 political reporter Paul Bongiorno last night, tweeting that Jacinta Nampijinta-Price got thumped by Warren Snowden when she ran for the largely Indigenous electorate of Lingiari, but that she then ran for the Senate to hide behind the CLP and its white supremacists. Good Lord, a courageous Indigenous woman derided with white supremacy references. That's Paul Bongiorno, a former priest no less, preaching civility and tolerance in politics. With that white supremacy reference, he must be angling for a job at the ABC as Indigenous Affairs reporter. These people love to attack others for a lack of tolerance or a lack of compassion, which is kind of odd because they seem to be completely unfamiliar with those concepts.